Managing tenants can make or break your success as a rental property investor. Ever wonder why some landlords call it quits? It's often because of a challenging tenant experience. But what if you could avoid that? Well, welcome to Strategy Saturday. I'm Charles Carillo, and today I'm sharing the strategies I've used to build win-win relationships with my tenants, strategies that have kept my properties thriving for years. Now, whether you're just starting out or looking to fine-tune your approach, these tips will help you create a positive and productive rental environment. From thorough tenant screening to clear communication and proactive maintenance, I've got you covered. Plus, stick around for some real-life stories, including how one amazing tenant relationship turned into a lasting friendship. So ready to take your tenant management game to the next level? Let's dive in. Effective tenant management is one of the cornerstones of being a successful rental property investor. Most, if not all, the landlord stories I have heard about why someone left the rental property profession are because of a poor tenant experience, or many of them. And this is not a jab at tenants, but a wake-up call for investors and landlords. So for years, I followed my father around and watched him deal with tenants. And from 2006 to 2012, I self-managed my small portfolio of C-class apartments and learned a lot about dealing with people and trying to create win-win relationships with my tenants. Now, during that time, I had some negative experiences, but primarily positive ones since I was fair. And several tenants have thanked me over the years, which can be extremely rewarding, knowing that what you're doing is not only helping you, but also helping your customers. Now, for example, I rented years back to a very hardworking Peruvian family until they purchased a home, and they were so appreciative that when my parents were traveling to Peru, they had a family member of theirs who was a taxi driver and their niece, who is a bilingual student, take them around for 2 days. And this is better than any 5-star review you can receive from any of your tenants. So let's break down some key strategies I've employed over the years with my properties that you can institute at yours. Number one is thorough tenant screening. So tenant screening really is the most effective way of setting yourself up and your property for success. Now, background checks including criminal, credit history, employment, and income verification, and speaking to them. Don't do everything through text or email. Get on the phone with potential tenants before they are invited to view the property. And it only takes a few minutes of the tenant speaking to you to know if they're a good candidate. And also check out episode SS199 to learn more about tenant screening questions that I've utilized in my business. Number two is clear communication. So don't assume anything. Don't assume that just because they're the only ones viewing the apartment, they're the only ones living there. And don't assume they read the lease and understand the property's policies and rules clearly. And this is why I'm a huge fan of lease cover sheets. I add a short, simple 1 to 2 page cover sheet with big headings, easy to read font, bullet points, and text that clearly spells out the most important parts of the lease. And this would include like rent is due on the 1st and you can pay it using these methods. Late fees are this amount and begin the day after the due date, or trash pickup is on this day and make sure your trash cans are on the street the day before. And the parking policy is this, and you can park here. And if you lock yourself out, here's the cost for doing that during the day and on the weekends or holidays or at night. And if you have a problem, do this or call here. And if you have an after-hours emergency, call here. And this type of clear communication is also setting expectations. If there's an emergency, you'll have someone there to fix the issue quickly. If a problem does not require immediate action, you'll be there within a certain number of days, business days, to rectify that problem. And knowing this up front is going to make your experience as a landlord a lot more straightforward, because you don't have to go there for something that's not required right away. You're only going to go over there as something lines up as it's required, as you've spelled out earlier in the lease. Number 3 is fast response to tenant issues. So when a tenant contacts you, respond immediately, even if it is not an emergency. And it lets them know that you've received the issue and that you're working to rectify it soon. If they just send a text message out and you get back to them, a day later or 2 days later and like, oh, we'll look into this or something like this, it's not very professional, and it doesn't make them really want to stay there or know that you're important to them. They just think that you just want rent money from them. When you fix a problem, you fix it correctly, not just with a patch, so that it does not happen again. And nothing is worse than having to report the same issue repeatedly. This happened to my wife and myself when we were dating, and the property manager would not correct the AC issue. And it was a recurring problem. And we would return from travel and find out the AC had been off for weeks. And this was a waterfront complex. This wasn't some slum. And we didn't renew and we moved. And addressing issues sooner than later is vital to retaining your tenants and wanting people to stay there and renew, because the money's made on the renewal. Number 4 is proactive maintenance. Now, it is the property manager's job to point out potential issues at the property before they become problems. And if you are the manager, you should always be on the lookout for any possible problems. Have a regular inspection schedule and make prompt repairs. Handymen and contractors are also excellent sources of this information, explaining what they see is on the way out and what they see might need a replacement, and you can make these repairs sooner than later. And this always happens. You have someone in there that's fixing something and there's something right next to it and go, this is something you're going to have to look at, or do you want me just to repair this now? Usually my answer would always be repair it now, because it's something that I don't want to deal with it again. And when you repair something, I don't want to deal with it for a few years or whatever it is. And also, you want to make sure your tenants aren't calling you again for this. And this is how you rectify a lot of issues before they even happen, is by just making the repairs correctly the first time. Number 5 is rent collection and technology. So utilizing technology to make your life and your tenant's life simple is key, and allow them to pay rent and submit issues online. Not dealing with collecting rent is a huge help, and having the ability to quickly send issues to your handyman without having to pick up the phone and speak to your tenant will simplify your life as a landlord. Also, it's making key that one of your first things that you should do as buying property, find that handyman that you can trust and leave a set of keys for your property. So it's like common doors and unit doors, right? All those locks, all those keys there. And that's something that if you're unavailable, if you're not right there, they can go right over there. They can keep them with you, with themselves, and they can go to the property. And if it's something major, always let the tenant know, listen, just to let you know, if you're not there, we're going to go in and get this fixed. Is that fine? And let them, I've never had anybody say no, but it's something that, because they want to get the problem fixed. So that way you can have someone go in there right away, fix it. You don't have to be there opening doors here, letting people in. That's just like a waste of your time. So the handyman, having someone that you can trust, is key to making all this work smoothly for you and for your tenant. Number 6 is fair and consistent policies. Enforce all policies and rules for all tenants equally to ensure fairness. And playing favor to one tenant versus another tenant will not end well. Someone's going to leave, and it's not going to be a pleasant experience before that person leaves. And who knows, you might lose the better tenant because you're playing favors to someone else that maybe just keeps on bothering you. So you start just letting that person do whatever they want, which is not a great policy. And don't wait until 30 or 60 days before the end of the lease to offer a good tenant a lease renewal. Approach them 90, 120 days beforehand, since you want to speak to them before they start looking for another unit, looking at rent, and you kind of get an idea and gauge what their attitude is about renewing, and then you can really gauge exactly how you're going to play the renewal. And always be calm, objective, and rational, which is difficult. I mean, I understand this when you're dealing with people that might be a little irrational at the point, but remember that tenant retention is the key to being a successful multifamily real estate investor. And it's not just that you have to keep them there for 10 years. That's fantastic if you do, and I've had tenants like that. But the key, though, is that just getting one renewal or even 2 renewals from them is going to boost your returns dramatically, because the amount of work that you have to do to prep that unit is very expensive and it's very time consuming. However, I've become much more willing to let tenants out of leases when they become a problem or they're not fulfilling their end of the bargain, because the worst thing is to lose good tenants in your property because of one bad tenant, which has happened to me several times before. And if you're interested in learning more about keeping good tenants, make sure you check out episode SS50, which is about how to retain your excellent tenants. So I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, submit comments and potential show topics at globalinvestorspodcast.com. If you're interested in actively investing in real estate, please check out our courses and mentoring programs at syndicationsuperstars.com. That is syndicationsuperstars.com. Look forward to 2 more episodes next week. See you then. Have you always wanted to invest in real estate but didn't have the time, didn't know where to find the deals, couldn't get the funding, and didn't want tenants calling you? Since 2006, I've been buying income-producing properties in great locations that provide us with consistent passive income while we wait for appreciation in the future and take advantage of tax laws while we're waiting. And unlike your financial advisor, we invest alongside our investors in every property we purchase. Check out investwithharborside.com. If you like the idea of investing in real estate, if you like the idea of passive income, partner with us at investwithharborside.com. That's investwithharborside.com.
Nothing in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this podcast are limited to accredited investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure, subscription documentation, and are subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Syndication Superstars LLC exclusively.